got for me?
I know you're a part of Tight Pants Society. Well, welcome into another edition of Gas. And you know what? During this, I look like ass because, when I logged in the first fucking time, my thing was working, and then, we got to adjust it a little bit. And then now the goddamn camera isn't working. So I'm on this fucking, 720 shit camera. Hey, welcome to Gas. Merry Christmas.
Oh, I'm so glad you brought that to air because, I get fired up with technical difficulties in the same manner, you can be sure. But we call you AG3, right? You're Andrew Gresh the third, right?
Correct.
We were maybe to like the 9th power today, right? Before we came on, all fired up. But I get it. You're a busy man. A lot of obligations later today.
No, it's not even that. When I connected, the goddamn thing worked. And then I had to move it up 2 freaking inches, and I bump it up a little bit. I put a thing under it this big, and then now it's, oh, God.
Well, if I was right there next to you, I'd give you a hug. Do you got a little kitten that could come into the room and sit on your lap, calm you down a little bit?
No. My wife just texted me, you literally sound psycho. And
Dude.
I'm like, no, it isn't, because if you've dealt with technology before, like you realize it, for God's sakes. Like you realize that this is the stuff that drives you nuts. Like if you're trying to get on a Zoom call and you're working or whatever, right? And you can't get on there, and then you're late, and then you start to be, what the hell? And you unplug stuff and you plug it in, and you go nuts, for crying out loud. But
no,
anyway,
I could not have empathized more, but it's great to be with you. And Gas,
buddy.
Gresh, Anik show, Gas morning drive. We're all gassed up in different ways. Gresh is gassed up. I'm gassed up. Dude, so we have so much to talk about today, and I know you'll drive the bus here in a minute, but I can't wait to talk to you about football versus basketball. I know we're going to get there later, but Christmas Day looms tomorrow, and I know what we'll be watching. I know we'll get there later.
Well, listen, I want to ask you, because how does Christmas work for you? I know that for people of different religious denominations, everybody ends up handling it differently. So how does it work for the Aniks on Christmas?
Well, and this is not hyperbole. In my family, our religion was football when I grew up. I'm not kidding. I'm Jewish, but our religion was football. I mean, we went to Patriots games, season tickets before I can remember, when I was 5, 6, 7, 8 years old. But yeah, I grew up Jewish. We do a little Hanukkah. We do Christmas. My wife is not Jewish, but it's a beautiful gift today. First day of Hanukkah is Christmas Day this year, which for guys like us that have been referred to maybe as bad Jews, helps us remember. So we'll get the menorah going. We already got the Christmas tree going. I like that we got a little smile out of you.
I was going to say, we already got a bad Jew reference today here on Gas to get us going here on Christmas Eve. So, well, that's what's driving me nuts, is that I plugged in, I was good, and I moved the camera, and now for some reason, all the technology isn't talking to each other. Is there anything that you need to get off your chest before we get rolling here today?
Yeah, and this could end up being a longer conversation, and I feel like some of this will be infiltrated in some of our basketball conversations later in the program. Mm-hmm. But all the conversation, whether it's BJ Armstrong, LeBron James, about the 3-point shot, and I'm not trying to go on a long diatribe, but I've been saying for a long time how much I have become less interested in the game because of the 3-point shot. I think I talked to you, whether it was on air or off. I had a conversation with my mom, who watches all 82 of the Celtics games, and I'm talking to her about the box score and how it's just all how well they shoot the 3-point shot, blah, and I'm just not into it. And she's talking to me about, well, they're getting such high quality 3-point shots. Those are the shots they're trying to get. They're penetrating and they're finding, wide open looks. I get it, but man, it's like I'm in the camp of really not feeling the game becoming just this chucking affair.
Well, I think that there are a lot of people who grew up in the certain way in the 80s and the 90s, where you had big men, you had power forwards. It feels like the game is 6'7" to 6'9" with all these multi-versatile guys. And then you have some point guards and shooting guards, or, bigs thrown in there, right? So I can understand why people are struggling in terms of the game of basketball, right? But this is where nerds and analytics have kind of gotten in the way of everything, right? Like it's the, even back to Rick Pitino, hey, take 2 steps backwards and, chuck up a 3-point shot. Like he was one of the ones and then Jim O'Brien, took it to the next level with the Celtics. Remember him when they kicked Pitino out of there?
Point.
And then it was, oh my God, what are they ultimately gonna do here? Well, Jim O'Brien was like, the hell with it, just start chucking it all over the place. So
yeah,
it is the way the game has gone. And for the Celtics, Crazy Joe Mazzulla has embraced playing that way. And it does work for them because they are supremely talented.
No doubt. And certainly Brad Stevens overseeing it is on the same page with Mazzulla. You bring up a really good point about Jim O'Brien almost being a little bit ahead of the curve, right? But like Dirk Nowitzki's statue in Dallas is not him traveling to a step back 3-point shot, right? Right?
Good point.
Every time, the 4 steps. It's Dirk off one leg taking a fadeaway that is unguardable inside the arc. And I guess call me old school, whatever it is. I saw some feature on Mark Price, great Cleveland Cavaliers guard back in the day, and how nasty he was. Just freaky. So anyway, I'm really in that camp, and I'm interested to see where it goes, right? There's no shift in baseball anymore, and I'm glad there isn't, right? Because I don't think it was good for the game. I'm not trying to get in a conversation like that. I guess what I would like to see is them eliminating the travel. Because when you're able to take that extra sort of half a step that they grandfather in, it sort of gives you that separation on that 3-point shot. So I think maybe getting rid of that perhaps would be one step in the right direction. But again, man, this was a big conversation, but it does sort of make me scratch myself.
Well, it does. Oh, I'm sure it does. Right. Listen, you're here fondling yourself on Christmas Day, the Christmas Eve. Let's get into some of the top stories in our world. And as you said, we're football guys first and foremost, Jay. So, Minnesota on Monday Night Football last night, it was Green Bay beating New Orleans 34-0. So Green Bay is 11-4. They clinch a playoff spot, but Jay, they clinch a playoff spot and they are 6th in the NFC at 11-4. Which is just amazing. But here was the other crazy part about last night. This was the first shutout of the NFL season. It's the first season ever in which there were no shutouts through 15 weeks. So Green Bay won. They're in an interesting spot. And this was the first shutout. Jay, where do you land on all this?
Did Spencer Rattler, with respect, have action on the shutout? I mean, I know it's a cliche, but it was really rattled in spots where at one point it was like, here, take the ball. It felt like to me. You talk about the road for Green Bay in the postseason. I couldn't agree more. It's absolutely insane. But I could also argue, as this playoff picture shapes itself out in both conferences, I could argue that it's difficult no matter what team you are, no matter where you're slotted, whether you're Kansas City in the 1 seed in the AFC, you're going to have Lamar Jackson coming in town perhaps. There's Josh Allen. I just think it is so difficult really no matter where you are. So I look at a team like Green Bay, I think it's really ultimately more about how good they actually are. Philadelphia, to me, is still the class of the National Football League. If Jalen Hurts is healthy on both sides of the ball, and I look at it like a tournament, I'm not so worried about the home field or the bye as much as I was weeks ago. That's sort of been a theme for me, but I think Green Bay is a live contender in this tournament, but yeah, their road will be steep.
Well, I did a little digging on Jordan Love last night. Do you know how many times he has thrown for 300 yards this season? 1.
Wow.
1. Now, here's the thing with Love. If the throws are under 30, he's been pretty good. If you have to rely on that guy to throw the ball, that's the problem because he turns it over a lot. So there is being praise heaped on Green Bay for having a great run game and leaning on that. But I wonder, Jay, how much of that is covering up the warts of Jordan Love in that they don't want him to throw the ball 30 times.
I think he's been better of late. I think that he was banged up a lot during the season, and Josh Jacobs hits differently than Aaron Jones. I like Aaron Jones, but Josh Jacobs is tougher. He has more swagger. They got him some nice rest last night with my bet of over 20.5 carries. But some nice rest for Jacobs. And I think it's a different mentality. It's probably not an accident. I bet LaFleur probably loves that statistic. He's like, yep, he doesn't need to throw that much. And I do think, as we talk about, it can be cliche, but January football, and as we even see in some of the college games playing in cold weather, I think this Green Bay team is built for it, and their toughest opponents may end up being division opponents. And I oftentimes like the road division opponent coming in with house money with a familiarity. So I think the Lions are ripe for an upset at some point, and I think Green Bay's live, man.
Well, I definitely think the Lions could be ripe for an upset because of all of the injuries that they've got going on, Jay. And look, 2 weeks left in the NFL regular season. The AFC playoffs appear to be relatively set, with the Chargers and the Broncos have 2-game leads over, whichever J-Brone team is, trying to catch them this week. It's Indy or someone like that. Miami, you're down there, tight pants nation, all that stuff. Miami, they lose to the thermometer every time it's below 35 degrees. But Chargers and Broncos, 2-game leads, Jay. Chargers hold the tiebreaker because they beat Denver twice. Denver plays at Cincy and then Kansas City. Now, the rub here is that if Kansas City beats Pittsburgh on Christmas, they don't need to play anyone in that game against Denver. So if Denver loses to Cincinnati and gives them a little bit of hope, all they got to do is turn around and beat KC, which sounds easy, but is difficult unless they take Kelsey and Mahomes and everybody and sit everyone down, which could happen if KC just holds serve here coming up tomorrow.
Well, and Denver, obviously, the opportunity to take on a Kansas City team that's not playing for anything, but setting themselves up for that double bye, right? So Christmas Day, let's say Kansas City does win, right? The divisional playoffs are what, January 18th? Whatever. We're talking, 3 weeks off. I mean, with a team like the Chiefs, I think the more time off, the better. I think this team have no problem being ready to play after 20 days or whatever the hell it is. But for Denver, right, I can't stop thinking about the Cincinnati Bengals. That's sort of my rub with all of this. And so I hope Kansas City has something to play for. So the Bengals have a shot. I think the Bengals are going to need some help. But, man, I want to see Joe Burrow find his way into this tournament and cause problems, literally for everyone, all the way back down to Baton Rouge or New Orleans where he plays for it. I just want to see the Bengals in. But for Kansas City, I'll ask you this question because I've looked at this and I'm going to get to some of my action later as we look to Christmas.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Do you like Kansas City? How much do you like Kansas City to beat Pittsburgh tomorrow? At minus 155 on the money line, -3. Because that's what it comes down to in terms of that week 18 Broncos Chiefs. Go ahead.
Yeah, honestly, I like both numbers, quite honestly. I like Kansas City to win the game because, Jay, they have something to play for. And you and I followed the New England Patriots for a long period of time when they were in the situation that Kansas City was in. And how many years did we sit there and say, oh, they got the number 1 or the number 2 seed, they got the bye, so you're feeling pretty good. And with Mahomes hurt, think of this. That guy's Superman. Like, whatever he takes to be able to play, give it to everybody, for God's sakes, because it never looks like the guy's hurt. But, Jay, think about this. Like you said, you win on Christmas Day. You're now giving Patrick Mahomes almost 3 weeks to get that ankle ready. Then you play 2 games at home. Then you get a week off before the Super Bowl. So the pacing of this is working perfectly for Kansas City. I think they're absolutely going to ball out and try to knock the Steelers out early, get themselves a lead, and then just try to coast their way to like a 3-point win.
Yeah, I definitely am on that side, and I think we'll get to that game specifically. I have maybe some action tied to the Chiefs, but I'm with you, man. It's really hard for me to believe in Pittsburgh right now. I love that we're sitting here Christmas Eve and not talking about the National Basketball Association.
Give it time. Give it time. You know we got to get to it. I know. Because we're here to serve the people for crying out loud, who watch Gas each and every week. And by the way, Cody Merrill's done a nice job of freshening up the little font down there. That's where you can follow us, whether it's on Twitch, whether it's on YouTube. You can get us all over the socials. I'm at the Real Gresh. And you are at
fucking C, right, Gresh?
No C. And there's only one real. There is someone who has REEL. So there are a couple of imposters out there. Don't fall for it. And of course, you can get Jay at Boston Anik. How about Atlanta and Tampa Bay, Jay? Battle for the NFC South. Atlanta is at Washington on Sunday night. Tampa will take on Carolina. Atlanta has already beat Tampa Bay twice. They own the tiebreaker. Tampa, New Orleans next week, Atlanta, Carolina next week. But the big news in Atlanta is that they've gone to Michael Penix Jr., and they got a win against the Giants. It wasn't a great offensive performance, but they did enough to be able to win. Are you a little surprised that Atlanta has pivoted away from Cousins already?
Not at all, actually. And we talked about this on this program, and I've talked about this on other programs, kind of ahead of the curve a little bit. And where we were talking about that draft pick of Michael Penix Jr. as Kirk Cousins continued to shit the bed. It's not as if Kirk Cousins woke up and was shitty week 12, week 13. He's been shitty since like week 4, 5, 6. Other than that, he had a 509-yard game, which buys you a longer leash. But I think it was a very good decision. They look brilliant for making the draft pick, no matter, and we said this before, no matter how much you or I like Penix Jr. as that guy, just looks great that they went with a quarterback there. I didn't see anything. I think he's still young. I still think we need to see more. Tampa Bay or Atlanta, I think Tampa Bay has much more of a chance to make any noise in the postseason. If Atlanta finds their way in this division, I don't see any chance they win that first round game. Kirk Cousins, I think Coach Raheem Morris was saying, we have the 19th or the best backup quarterback in the league. No, you don't. You don't have.
Yeah, no, you don't. And I know that we'll get to some college like football playoff stuff. And there's a team that I like because they got depth at quarterback. But yeah, I think Cousins has been hurting. I don't know if there was the full-blown like mutiny maybe that could have gone on down in Atlanta, meaning they knew that Penix was tearing it up. A little bit what Gerard Mayo went through, like week 5, week 6, where the guys were like, come on, you got to play the kid, get him in there. And then speaking of New England, Jay, we wrap up kind of the early portion of the football talk with the race for the top 3 is on in terms of the picks in the NFL draft. Listen, you and I are sharing a brain. I'm very excited. The Giants are the number 1 pick by losing to Atlanta. Vegas beat Jacksonville. So now Jacksonville has the 3 pick. Vegas slides all the way to number 6, Jay. But what that means is the New England Patriots are sitting there at number 2. And I'm telling you right now, I know they need offensive line help. You know I don't do the no pants stance for wide receivers or something like that. But if they're at number 2 and they trade out and don't take Travis Hunter, we should riot.
I'm so happy to hear you say that. And if you had been at my house last night and heard my younger brother with this tired groove about draft capital, Gresh, he might be injured right now. As I could not agree with you more. What are we doing here? I couldn't believe in this kid more. And it's interesting, though, what he did say. My brother made an interesting point. You had talked about if Travis Hunter were to come to the NFL and play both sides, you would maybe see him sort of as almost like a full-time wide receiver and maybe a nickelback. Is that accurate?
Yeah, I think definitely.
Right. That I couldn't agree more. He was actually maybe, and he doesn't know Travis Hunter maybe his game as well as you do. He was actually arguing the other thing, being a full-time corner and maybe, finding himself sort of infiltrated into the offense as maybe 20%. I'm more with you.
Yeah, I think you gotta play him on offense, honestly, Jay, because he needs to learn more of those skills. Like at corner, you can probably plug and play him, right? And I know that in our chat, our producer Cody has mentioned that Hunter might need to make a little bit of an adjustment with his lady friend. Now that the internet has started sleuthing a little bit. Hey, here is the reason for hope in New England. Gerard Mayo. And I'm sure you never thought I would say this, Jay. However, the goal of what we're talking about is getting the number 2 pick. Thank God Gerard Mayo's the coach because we're guaranteed to get the number 2 pick. It's
unbelievable how many football games here or there they could have found their way on the winning side. I mean, even losing by a touchdown to Buffalo. I couldn't agree with you more. So we saw this line, right? I messaged you when I saw Travis Hunter to go number 1 overall at plus 225, maybe about a week to 10 days ago. And now, given what's transpired in the National Football League, he is now 9-1 to go number 1 overall. So I want to ask you literally maybe, or just talk about the same thing we did last week. Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward. Do we know? I mean, like how good, right? Would you take either one of them over Drake May? Good question, huh?
No, I wouldn't take either one of them over Drake May. I think a part of the reason those odds are the way they are, Jay, is because deep down, everybody knows that if Shedeur Sanders or Cam Ward get drafted number 1 overall, it's an overdraft because you're then just crashing for need. So I understand why the odds are on Hunter, because I'm a believer, you're a believer, especially these NFL teams get under the hood. As long as Dion stays out of the way, I think with Travis Hunter, everybody is just going to be like, oh my God, can I go get this guy? But if you're the Giants and you have an owner who might allow those current people to stay in place, meaning Joe Shane, the GM, and Brian Daboll, the head coach, John Mara might say, you guys are going to take a quarterback this year.
Yeah, well, and I believe Shedeur Sanders would be the favorite out of the gate right now with Cam Ward right behind him, and then Travis Hunter. We've talked about it being interesting if someone would actually trade up to go get Travis Hunter, because to your point, Gresh, and there it is. Appreciate you, Cody Merrill. This is via DraftKings Sportsbook. So Shedeur Sanders, almost prohibitive to me at -275, but Deion Sanders, kid, number 1 overall, New York Football Giants. Hard to think that doesn't happen.
Yeah, I would think so. And they'll overdraft him and he won't do great because I don't think he's a great quarterback and he's got so much to learn. And I hate to say this, but look who he's been coached by. I mean, for those who are wondering about Shedeur Sanders, right? Ask yourself this: who is the offensive coordinator of Colorado? Can anybody? No one knows. Me. Yeah, you know why? Because it's all about prime time and selling sunglasses and whatever and all this stuff, right? No one looks at who's coached this guy, who's groomed this guy. That's why for some people, they look at Travis Hunter and say, hey, guess what? Dion can help that guy be a better corner. Dion's not going to help his kid be a better quarterback. So, we got to lean into some of that background as well. But I can understand the market being minus for Shedeur Sanders because it looks like the Giants are going to continue to tank their way to this number 1 pick. Folks, we mentioned you can get us on all the socials. I'm at The Real Gresh when I'm not yelling at my camera. He is at Boston Anik. Anik versus Anik with the folks at Odd Sharks every Thursday at 11 a.m. Now, I'm assuming because you boys are Jewish, it's no big deal to work the day after Christmas, right?
Oh, it's no big deal to work any day. No, but no, Odd Shark going dark all week though. Odd Shark's going dark all week.
So no Hanukkah edition of Anik versus Anik. What are we doing?
No, here? I love it. No Hanukkah edition of Anik versus Anik. Oh, and we might have actually sang for you perhaps, but there won't be an edition. Cody, we were talking about what picks, how we want to handle our picks. So we're thinking whatever we submit for the contest, we may just submit for Anik versus Anik. I did gain a little ground on him last week, and I'm kind of, I hate to say it, seeing the board decently, Gresh, so I would have hoped to have a show this Thursday.
Yeah, because your picks have been pretty good as of late. I know you had some weeks where you took it on the chin. Your brother's been terrible all year, but that's another story for another time. Well, I figure that if I slander him, ultimately that other Anik will be like demanding to come on here to yell at both.
Well, and slandering him is actually a really good way to get under my skin because I'll actually sit here and come back at you and say he's actually seen the board quite well. What's happened is, unfortunately, we've been better on the weekend a little bit, whereas the show is on Wednesday. He was on the Jets on Anik versus Anik this week and then played the Rams in the contest. He was on the other side. So by the time you feel me, as one of his best bets, he ends up hitting it by the time the weekend and making money on the game. So there's different sort of circumstances there, but yeah, it is week to week. I talk about gambling being luck, right? And I will say, oftentimes the luck balances out. This year, I felt like I've been particularly unlucky, right? The one game I lost in the contest on an Anik versus Anik was the Philadelphia Eagles yesterday or 2 days ago. I think I was on the wrong side. I think that game plays out entirely different if Jalen Hurts is a part of it. I don't think Jalen Daniels sees the field even close as many times. I just think everything plays out different. Respect to Pickett. He did a decent job, but he's an unmitigated disaster if he's playing next week.
Wow, who would have thought that me trying to needle John would have turned you into breaking down the Eagles? It's great. That was. And by the way, I believe me, I understand. It's the fiery older brother that comes out. The minute and a half, whatever it was before he got out of there. You're the fiery one. I completely understand it. So no Anik versus Anik this week. I'm going to be all over ESPN Radio. I got it
everywhere.
Yeah, I got today 3 to 7:30, and then tomorrow 7 to midnight, and then Mad Dog Radio on Thursday and Friday. So check me out there.
Gobble.
Bro, I'm the lead into the Hawaii Bowl. What I really would have said to the people at ESPN Radio is, hey, listen, you need a color analyst for the Hawaii Bowl? You know what I mean? Like, I'm good. Like, I'll help you out there. Go back out to Hawaii. But yeah, you can catch me on ESPN Radio. And as you said, Jay, Merry Christmas to all, or Happy Hanukkah to all, because we get gifts as sports fans. Yes, 5 NBA games on Christmas Day. The NFL has 2 games on Netflix. So, Jay, first of all, NFL on Netflix. We had the Jake Paul fight. Now, again, I guess I won't besmirch the Jake Paul camp, but I'm going to dare say that the technological people and the infrastructure at the National Football League is way different than whatever Ham Hands production company they use for that broadcast. People are worried that Netflix isn't going to be able to carry the mail here. So how do you see this whole Netflix thing with the NFL? Are you worried that your football religion will be interrupted because of some sort of internet streaming issue?
No, I don't have time to sit here on a fucking Tuesday, Christmas Eve, on Christmas Day, and worry about if I'm going to get a stream or not. I got to go pretend to be Santa. I got to go wrap a bunch of presents that I'm going to put under the tree tonight. My girls are 11 and 8. I do believe they still believe in S clause. We don't have a chimney, but he'll find a way in here. So no, I'm not worried about the streaming. And if the NBA was streaming, you could be sure I wouldn't be worried, because if you think the National Basketball Association is getting any of my fucking time tomorrow,
None.
The NFL on regular season NBA for a long time. A lot of people have talked about the NBA should start on Christmas Day. The season's too long, whatever it may be. My younger brother and my mom watch all 82 Celtics games. Every different strokes for different folks. Okay. Joe Rogan doesn't like football. He would laugh at me if I tried to convince him to watch the NFL, but you stand with me, Andy.
Oh yeah. And look, the Celtics will be on, because for my youngest, if it's a football game versus the Celtics, he'll watch the Celtics right now.
Love that.
Because he's just so into Tatum and Brown. And, like last night, the Celtics lost in Orlando. No Tatum, no Hauser. I was doing ESPN Radio, and I was working with a guy down in your neck of the woods, Jonathan Zaslow, and he was like, hey, you're starting to get worried? And I'm like, no, Tatum didn't play in Orlando, only won by like 6. So what in the world would I be freaking out for? And how about let's just hone in on this NBA game. You got the 76ers at the Celtics. Celtics are -9.5. Over-under is 221.5. Tatum will likely be back. I think that's why he rested against Orlando. But Joel Embiid got thrown out of a game recently. The 76ers are an absolute mess. It feels like to me, Jay, that Philly is an absolute sitting duck, even though the Celtics have not shot the ball well in the month of December.
Yeah, well put all around. I like the Celtics coming off a loss, and I'll get to a little bit of my action because I do have the Celtics, believe it or not, tied to some of my action. Jason Tatum last night was a late scratch toward the end of the game. I did, as a square gambler, have the Celtics money line tied to a bet. And what's interesting, my younger brother, who does watch all these Celtics games, as they took like a 15-point lead, he said, hammer the Magic. He said the Celtics get out to these big leads and they blow it. You start hammer the other team, even if the Celtics find a way to win, but they oftentimes don't cover. They blow these leads. Anyway, I like the Celtics here, right? You dropped us some great information, but since the NBA went to a 5-game Christmas Day format, favorites 40-40 against the spread, but 51-29 straight up. I'm just looking for a lot of these home teams to sort of want to show out for their fans and make the holiday memorable, right? Celtics 8-2 on Christmas since 2012, 7-2 against the spread and straight up against Philly in their last 7. So I got a bet for you, Gresh. All right.
Oh,
And so it's a parlay, right? And I know we're going to get back to some NFL, but so my 2 legs from this Celtics game, as square as they may sound, Celtics money line, it's a 3-team parlay, right? Pays about even money. Celtics money line -475. I don't love the 9.5, 10 points. Tatum is still ill. He may not play, but I think the Celtics find a way to win at home and not lose 2 straight after that loss at Orlando. So Celtics money line, and then an adjusted total on Jaylen Brown's points over 14.5. Last year he had 35 on Christmas, right? Or 35 last night. Last year on Christmas, Jaylen had 19. on a bad night, right? But so that's an adjusted total. Jaylen Brown over 14.5, Celtics money line tied to the Ravens money line at the Houston Texans. I don't think the Ravens lose. So Ravens win, Celtics win, and Jaylen Brown scores 15 points. I don't think any of those three are difficult asks. I know we'll get into the Ravens game. You like the Celtics? You like that?
Oh no, I do. I love the parlay. It makes a lot of sense. Somebody who was writing an article on the parlays asked me about like how do you give me a couple strategies or whatever to put it together. And I think you nailed it. You got two NBA ones thrown in there with an NFL team that is definitely going to win. That is the way to go. And the old way of doing it is, two picks that you love and then somebody to win the Masters, to kind of jack up the odds a little bit.
Bingo.
In terms of, massaging your parlays. Hey, at noon, it's the Spurs and the Knicks. It's Knicks minus 9.5. I think the Victor Wembanyama bets are all live in this game.
I agree.
He had 26 and 8 blocks against the Sixers on Monday night, and the guy has been fantastic. You're going to get Lakers Warriors late. And then, how about this? Last night, Nuggets and Suns played. Christmas, Nuggets and Suns are going to play again. That's odd. Jokic shouldn't have to play in the fourth quarter in this Monday night game. Really like the Nuggets plus the points at the Suns. Right now, that Christmas Day game is Suns minus 2.5.
Thank God I can gamble, right? Because Gresh, I love talking sports, and I will look for opportunities to bet on these games. But Gresh, you're going to be working, right? You won't have a chance to flip around, right? But if you, right? Am I accurate there?
Yeah. On the whole, I'll have to flip a little bit, maybe between that, Celtics and the NFL game, but I have to be generally aware. But if you said to me, I'm sitting down and watching something, it's the NFL games. And on the other TV, I would have the C's on just to monitor.
The regular season association for me is such a difficult sell. Everyone has a certain amount of bandwidth in their life for sports or whatever it may be. And I could tell you, as I sit here today, I'm going to make more room for college football in my life next year than the NBA. But no doubt about it, the NBA regular season as a Celtics fan, right? And I could argue that I know we may talk about what presents we may like under our tree, but the Boston Celtics, I believe, had some opportunities to win championships prior to last year. Maybe that they didn't sort of seal the deal. And I guess for me, when a team goes as far as the Celtics, forget last year, the year prior, other years, you get to the conference finals, you get to the finals, and then you lose. You got to go 12 more months, 82 regular season games. How's Porzingis' health going to be? There's so many variables. You talk about worrying about the technology on the TV. I can't worry about the Celtics in the regular season right now. I'd much rather focus on football. I'll turn the page on that post All-Star break, if I'm being honest.
All right, well, let's turn the page then. Let's jump to the Christmas Day schedule. You and I have talked about the Kansas City Steelers game a little bit. It's Kansas City minus 2.5 at Pittsburgh. Over-under is 43.5. That is the 1:00 game on Christmas Day. Open at 2.5. Line hasn't really moved very much. And I just think this is one of those where who has the most to play for? And you can argue with the Ravens trying to hunt the Steelers down. The Steelers have a lot to play for as well. But for Kansas City, we're talking about championship level needing to play well. They know if they get that bye, those guys get 3 weeks of rest before a home playoff game. That's why I think Kansas City gets this job done.
I agree. This is so fascinating to me from a Chief standpoint, really what we talked about earlier. And I think it's okay having that type of time off, but it is really interesting to think about all the different components to that. It's such a long amount of time, Gresh. If they, in fact, it's like, if I'm a Chiefs fan, right? I'm almost rooting for them to lose, as crazy as that sounds. I'm not even kidding, right? This particular game, because as Patriots fans, right? And would you consider yourself a Patriots fan, by the way?
Yeah. I think as someone who followed it, because I think I know the road you're going to go down.
Yeah. When they went 16-0 and they lost in the Super Bowl to the Giants, the last regular season game of the year, or one of the last regular season games of the year, was a very close game against the New York Giants that the Patriots won. And I remember vividly almost wanting them to lose. And so if I look at Kansas City, Maybe they play a game at Pittsburgh, but as long as Mahomes stays healthy, I almost wouldn't mind them losing and having to play for something next week so they don't necessarily get that double bye. That scares me a little bit from Kansas City standpoint, but I love Kansas City in this spot. I think they're much better than the Steelers. I think 3 is a short number. And quickly, my bet, I have Chiefs minus 155 tied to the Knicks minus 400. I think the Knicks win at home. Jalen Brunson had like 38 on Christmas last year. I like his over 22.5 points. So I love the Chiefs to win the game. Chiefs, Knicks, you get a plus money if you tie those two teams together.
No, I think that's a great play. I like that very much. I would say this about Kansas City. A lot like New England, they knew how to handle the rest and they knew how to handle getting ready. That's why I'm not freaked out. If it were Houston or even, Pittsburgh, right? Like Tomlin's a pretty good coach, but if you've gone through it as players before, like the Kansas City guys have, to me, I admit I don't worry about it as much. By the way, that Baltimore-Houston game, I'm with you. Baltimore's not going to lose. Houston's picking up wide receivers. They lose Tank Dell. Very emotional in Kansas City. Houston didn't completely pack it in, but they weren't the same after that. And I think this is still a Houston team that is trying to find their way. Meanwhile, on the other end, it's Baltimore minus 4.5. Now it's up to 5.5. And the money line is minus 250 because I think the Ravens smell a chance to win a division title.
No question about it. The Ravens are live. I'm kicking myself for not betting on the Ravens to win the Super Bowl prior to last week's game. I loved the Ravens to cover the number last week. I tell you what, they find themselves with a home playoff game, a little bit of mojo. That's when I talk about the Kansas City Chiefs. You fuck around, you sit around for 3 weeks, and then you got Lamar Jackson fresh off a dominant playoff win coming into town.
That'd be a Kansas City win, regardless.
Fair,
I know you're feeling Baltimore right now.
I think that they are a funky team. I feel as though I haven't sensed them well from a gambling standpoint every step of the way this year. But I think that is one of those teams. You talk about a Joe Burrow-led Cincinnati team, but that Ravens defense is a little bit of an anomaly. I think there are often times where measurably the analytics have pointed to them really being a bad outfit, but when you look at them every week, and old friend Kyle Van Noy lighting up your television set, I think they have a lot to play for, and I like the leadership. Justin Tucker maybe got a little confidence going last week. I love the Ravens this week.
By the way, our producer Cody threw in the chat, Derrick Henry 2 or more touchdowns does look tasty, and he's right. I could totally see a big rushing performance out of the Ravens. Hey, even though we have games on Christmas, Jay, we still have a Thursday night game. Seattle is at Chicago. Seattle's covered 4 straight road games. They covered 4 straight games against teams with losing records. We know the Bears are not very good right now. Seahawks are minus 3.5. I hate the hook. I like the money line because I just don't trust Seattle. But boy, the Bears are so up and down. You have to lean Seattle in this game hard.
The Bears are not up and down. They're down. They're just down, right? I couldn't believe that my brother was on the Bears last week. You can be sure I was on the Lions. So fascinating angle that I just want to bring your way before I talk about the Seattle game. So the Survivor contest, the million contest out in Vegas, right? Or not the million, the 14 million Survivor contest in Vegas, down to about 50 contestants, right? But what's interesting is that the Christmas games, the 2 games on Christmas and the 1 game on the Thursday, Gresh, is 1 week of this thing. So you would have had to save one of these 6 teams in your Survivor. So to make a long story short, a guy, Tony, who's on this, who consults for a team, they got Seattle this week in Survivor. That was the one team they had left. And I kind of like it with all in that Christmas week, right? Depending on who you have left. So he needs Seattle just to win the game. And I'm like you, I don't like the hook, but I think they find a way. Unless I'm mistaken, the Bears have not won a football game since they were almost went to 5-2 with that Hail Mary they didn't knock down. They're 4-2. They haven't won a football game since. I like Seattle here. I believe you said that, but forgive me if I'm overstepping, but the Seattles have covered 4 straight games on the road. I like that. So I like Seattle quite a bit here, but laying that 3.5 to me on the road when you don't know what the makeup is of the locker room and where Chicago is a little bit difficult, but forced to pick that game against the spread, I would most certainly lay the 3.5 before I put any of my hard-earned American dollars on the Chicago Bears.
7-13 against the spread at home as underdogs are the Bears over the last 4 seasons. So hopefully they will do what they do, which is be bad. On Saturday, there are 3 games, but there's one good one. Denver is at Cincinnati. Cincy minus 3.5, over under 49.5. It opened at 3. It's moved a little bit. Broncos are 11-4 against the spread this season, tied for best in the NFL. But this is Cincinnati. Cincy's got something to play for. Burrow and Chase have been great. Cincy minus 3.5 still makes me want to go Denver, but I recognize that Cincinnati is incredibly dangerous.
You know, Cleveland did a lot of things last week against Cincinnati to sort of limit that point total. And that scares me a little bit as a Bengals bettor, but I'm fully on the Bengals train. I'll lay whatever I need to lay. I think Joe Burrow at home lights it up here. You know, the Broncos record against the spread, I think they were a little disrespected earlier in the season. I think they got a 0-4. They battled back, whatever it was. They sort of battled back. So I think they were a little bit undervalued in Vegas. But I know they've done very well ultimately under Sean Payton, and I like them a little bit more coming off a loss but I think they kind of shit the bed against LA last week. And I think the Bengals, the door is still open to make the postseason. All they had to do was win. They need to handle their own business. And this is one step here. They got to handle it. And if the Chiefs, they will know, right? They will know. So if the Chiefs in fact lose to Pittsburgh, then the door for Cincinnati is very much open. But I believe for Cincinnati to get in, the Colts and Dolphins, one of those two teams each have to lose one game. And forgive me, I don't have their schedule in front of me, but the Colts and the Dolphins both have I think the Dolphins have Jets. I think they have some very winnable games. So it's going to be interesting to see if Cincinnati does win out and get to 9-8 if they have done enough.
Let me tell you something. If Miami finds their way into the playoffs, I will fly to Florida. We will set up that camera. And do you remember with Vince McMahon back in the day with the Kiss My Ass Club? If Miami makes the playoffs, I'll fly down there. I will pull, you can be Vince McMahon, and I'll be like I will kiss your bare ass.
Okay,
if Miami
you wouldn't want to do that.
Playoffs. But because I know that those guys are going to gag it away, but that's my wager. I will fly. If Miami makes the playoffs somehow by hook or crook, because I know they're soft, I know they're weak, I know their coach is overrated. I feel good on making that one, even though no one is offering odds on that. Sunday, brother, Green Bay at Minnesota. Minnesota minus 1.5. I know you said really nice things about Green Bay coming off of last night's performance, but they go against a Vikings team where the real Sam Darnold has not shown up yet. And I've been waiting for that guy to show up. It looks like he might make it through the regular season unscathed, Jay.
I hear you. This game is fascinating for me because I feel as though it feels like a lot's decided, right? Especially where the Lions have really put themselves in a position. I understand Minnesota and Detroit play head-to-head at Detroit in week 18. But even with a win here for Minnesota, the idea that they're going to go to Detroit and win that football game seems like a little bit of a tough ask for me. I would still favor Detroit to win that division. So it's interesting for me. While this game is very important, it feels not that important. You feel me? Right? It's like these both feel like wildcard teams that are going to have very big games ahead of them. So I guess I would ask you, in a game like this game from a gambling standpoint screams layoff, right? I have no action Green Bay, Minnesota right now because I think they both have a lot to play for. I think they're very evenly matched. I could see it going either way. And sometimes we talk about desperation. It's difficult for me to sense the desperation. I guess gun to my head, I'd say Minnesota, maybe a little more to play from here.
Yeah, well, Minnesota still does have a chance to win the division, of course, against Detroit. But these teams have also both cashed their ticket to the playoffs. So if you're Matt LaFleur and Kevin O'Connell, respectively, when do you start to kind of give guys a break, give them a blow, give them a chance to start to, heal up? And not that you're going to bench Sam Darnold, don't get me wrong. Like, you're not going to go that far, but you're trying to balance hey, be as healthy as we can for the postseason, but get the best position that you possibly can. I like the Vikings here only because, as crazy as it sounds, I think if it turns into a game where you got to throw it, if Jordan Love's got to throw, I think the interceptions come. Now, Sam Darnold has thrown some picks as well. I just think with Minnesota being at home, it probably gives them the edge. And I know we got a little bit more to get to, so we'll pick it up here. Dallas at Philadelphia. Jay, it's Philly minus 10, and we don't know, as you and I talk, what is up with Jalen Hurts right now. Even though this is a really good game and it means a lot, I feel like from a betting standpoint right now, it's kind of a stay away for me.
I agree. Other than grabbing the 10 points with Dallas, I mean, I don't play Jalen Hurts. I don't play him. I think the 1 seed is going to be a very difficult. I don't see that. There may be no path to the 1 seed. I do not play him. I get myself very much ready for my first postseason game. I don't know exactly what they'll have to play for week 18, but do you even consider playing Jalen Hurts this week?
Yeah, I don't. No, I don't think you can. I think the fact
Micah
that
Parsons
they lost,
coming down the pike. Sorry.
Yeah, no, you probably don't. And look, of course, Dallas, they get eliminated, Jay, and then they start playing their best football. How very Dallas of them. I also think too, going outside, and I know that in the NFC East, that Dallas is used to it, but going outside at Philadelphia might be a little bit of an avalanche. But until that quarterback situation is squared away, I don't know if I can roll with it. And then speaking of going outside, brother, Sunday night, the Atlanta Falcons are at the Washington Commanders. Commanders obviously coming off a big win against Philadelphia. Atlanta beat the Giants. Dome team, outdoors, in the cold once again. I know it was cold against the Giants. I understand it. But this time going to Washington for a Washington team that's feeling themselves a little bit. Right now, it's Commanders -4. Boy, I'd love to see that get down a little bit. But I'll tell you right now, Jay, I got no faith in Atlanta. If I'm riding, I got to ride the favorite here.
I couldn't agree more. And we alluded to this a little bit earlier, but what a blessing for Jaden Daniels and Washington, the entire team, to have Jalen Hurts go out like that and get the mojo from that game. I love them against Atlanta. That may be one of my 5 in the contest. I don't believe in Atlanta across a number of different fronts. Like, they would have lost to a lot of football teams, I think, last weekend that weren't the New York Football Giants. I love Washington here. And I do think, momentum is a funny thing. And I think you could think about that even when we talk about the Chiefs. Maybe that's a moot point at this point. But for me, a team like Washington very much needs momentum if they're going to make any noise in the NFC. Whereas I think a team like the Packers could lay back in the cut. I don't necessarily think I think the Packers could be a great contender, even if they don't play their best game in Minnesota and lose. But I think Washington needs to be firing on all cylinders and be feeling themselves if they want to make any noise.
And if you're Washington, you'd love to try to avoid the 7 seed. So you got to keep pace with Green Bay in that instance. Because if you're the 7, you're going to Philly. If you're the 6, you're likely going to LA to play the Rams. And Jay, I would just say to you real quick, Minnesota and Green Bay would presumably are going to be the 5-6. The 3-4 seed are likely to be the Rams and Atlanta. Yep. There's no way. Oh, so Tampa could be in there too. You're right. Atlanta, Tampa, whomever out of that NFC South. But regardless, Minnesota and Green Bay are likely to be favored in the wild card round on the road against those teams. Would you agree?
I would agree. I would think the Green Bay LA line would be very close, if not a pick 'em. And I'm sure you could chase that somewhere if we needed to, but I don't think we need to. I think that one may be close. I tell you what, the LA Tight Pants Society, and I talked about the Rams being sellers this year. I thought they should have moved on from Cooper Kupp. I don't know. I mean, I guess they proved me wrong. But I still don't know how good they are. If I get stomped in the first round of the playoffs, maybe I am still right. But that division has been weak, which I think is more why sort of the Rams have risen up.
AFC stronger playoff field or NFC stronger playoff teams?
Great question. Wasn't prepared for it. I'd flip a coin. I think they're so equally balanced, right? I guess for me, as I sit here today, I can't believe it, but the Chiefs really do feel like a slight cut above because they have Patrick Mahomes. Period. I mean, that's sort of it. So for me, all these other teams, I think, are right there. My brother talks about, as a UFC broadcaster, nothing brings him greater pleasure than when a champion realizes championship gold for the first time. So for me, the opportunity to see a guy like Josh Allen win a Super Bowl, I would love to see that. For Buffalo, I know you hate Buffalo, right? But I don't, as I get older, I don't have any venom really toward any fan bases. So some of these franchises that haven't won, gosh, I'd love to see it.
Look at you mellowing out. Look at you.
I'll show you my hippies use the back door poster.
What?
I'll go get it. We got a sign up that says hippies use the back door. What happens in the garage stays in the garage.
Oh, that is very true, Fred. The college football playoff quarterfinal round games. Now, I'm going to do something that my wife loves, right? But I'm going to do it to you, Jason Anik.
Uh-oh.
You were right. 100% across the board. Almost across the board. I did hit an over. But the favorites ruled the day in the first round of the college football playoff. Home teams 4-0, won all 4 games by 10-plus points. All 4 teams at one point in time, Jay, had a 21-plus point lead. There was only 1 lead change total in the 4 games across the board. So I kind of, because I hate James Franklin. I think he's a fraud.
I know you do.
I had a guy say to me, SMU wasn't big enough for him to choke it away. And you know what? It made a lot of sense. Like if it were Ohio State, he would have gagged it away because it's a blue blood. But Jay, I got to tell you, if you were super contesting the college football playoff games, you, friend, would be at the top of the board 4-0 because you were on all the favorites last week and I was on all the dogs.
Well, how unique was it for some of those home favorites to play a home game for the Ohio State fans who were in the building against Michigan a couple weeks prior? What a life experience for them, right? I'm going real hippie on you, but what a great experience for them to just absolutely stomp Tennessee, and it's a gift, right? And then these are all bowl games, right? So Ohio State, it's so funny to me. I've been talking about this since the beginning, and I should look at an Ohio State line to win the whole thing because they have that Michigan game, right? And then think about what this experience could be for them, right? Get to host Tennessee and have that home game. Now you're going to the Rose Bowl against the number 1 team in Oregon. I mean, what else are you looking for? You get through them, you got a chance to win the whole thing. But I think it's fascinating. I can't wait for next week. It is interesting for me that it comes sort of in the middle of the week. Even though it is sort of these holidays, Georgia, Notre Dame, I'm fascinated. How are you less fascinated given Georgia not having their starting quarterback?
Yeah, no. In fact, I think it will be a true test as to how good Georgia really is. So Carson Beck, for those who don't know, he is dating a Cavender twin. That is good for him, and she'll be able to take care of him because he had surgery on his elbow. So Beck is out for the year. So backup slides in. Georgia's going to take on Notre Dame in the Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame is +1.5. I have a funny feeling this game might get down closer to a pick 'em maybe because people will talk themselves into Georgia not being the better team. I still like Georgia, especially if they are an underdog. There's a little bit of lack of faith in Marcus Freeman in my pick as well.
I like it. Any Penn State, Boise?
Oh,
Boise's
my
getting,
God.
11?
Penn State will roll. This is a perfect spot for that loser, James Franklin, to go out there and fake put a flag in the ground that he's allegedly good. So Boise, just talent-wise, across the board, I don't think in the lines of scrimmage, Boise can really handle Penn State for 60 minutes. Now, it's a big number, -11. However, you're not going to Boise to play this game. It's the Fiesta Bowl. I know Boise will travel well. Penn State will travel well. I just think this is one of those where I thought James Franklin would gag it away last week. He won't gag it away this week. I feel like Boise and Arizona State, Jay, are both set up to get rolled in this round. Texas -14 against Arizona State in the Peach Bowl. See you later. I think they're just going to get run out of the building.
And Ohio State, are you surprised they're a 2.5-point favorite against Oregon?
You know what? I'm blown away because I like Oregon.
I figured you would be.
But this line has freaked me out. Because I learned a long time ago in gambling, if it doesn't look right, there's a reason. If I said to you, Ohio State, Oregon, neutral field, wouldn't you automatically say, yeah, Oregon will win that game? They're the number 1 team in the country. Their coach has been great all year. They've been great. And then the odds makers go Ohio State -2.5. I am completely twisted on this.
Well, I think it's based upon if that Michigan game is an outlier or if it isn't, right? I mean, if that game, I think losing that, I think that maybe some odds makers or some, I don't know, maybe there's a component of that is being thrown out. But I hear you. That I see that line, and I agree with you. It'll be interesting to see how that line moves as the week goes along. I'm an intangible guy, Gresh. And so for me, right, it's a part of me that thinks that Michigan loss to Ohio State may be what sort of helps them be playing with house money a little bit and fuck everybody and us against the world, and they may hoist it.
Yeah, I think there's like 2 parts of the bracket. Like when you really think about how it's set up, if Texas wins, which I know they're going to, Then they get the winner of Ohio State and Oregon. I feel very differently about Texas if that's Ohio State versus Oregon in that matchup against them. Whereas in the bottom part of the bracket, Notre Dame and Georgia, the winner of that game, is going to get, I think, a sitting duck, because either Penn State goes to the semifinals, Franklin gags it away, or you're going to match up Georgia and Notre Dame against Boise, even though they have Ashton Genty. I just don't see good things for Arizona State and Boise. But Jay, think of this on the other end. Say Boise wins and they catch Notre Dame in the semifinals. Boise could be playing for a national championship in a couple of weeks.
Just unbelievable, though, how Georgia, I understand the bye, right? But Georgia, by beating Texas twice, right? Texas gets a home game in fucking Austin against Clemson. Never played them before. What a fucking day, right? And then they get Arizona State in the next round versus Georgia. The way this played out, yeah, you get the bye, but then neutral site Notre Dame most certainly as great. So it's very fascinating how this shook out. Texas, you could argue, getting a better bracket, even though they beat Georgia head-to-head twice.
A completely terrible job by the College Football Playoff Committee. I hate the fact that they tried to do the whole, grease up the Power 5 skid and stuff like that. Jay, if they just stuck to the rankings, okay, Oregon, Georgia, Texas, and Penn State would have got buys. These would have been your matchups, right? It would have been 5-12 Notre Dame, Arizona State, 6-11 Ohio State, Alabama. The 7-10 would have been Tennessee, SMU, and the 8-9 Indiana, Boise State. You give me those games in the first round compared to what we got, I think we have very much a different feel around this college football playoff. So you and I are going to be on top of it. And, as we end today, I know that you celebrate Hanukkah and Christmas. I celebrate Christmas as well. So what is it, Jason Anik, that you would like to find under your sports Christmas tree this year?
I love it. I got a little three pack for you. Okay. So we've been very gifted as Boston sports fans, right? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to go from 3 to 1, right? So my bronze medal, what I want under my tree is Travis Hunter, man. I really want Travis Hunter for Christmas. I know I may have to be a little bit delayed, but I really want him as the bronze medal. I see you praying for that.
Oh, yeah.
The silver medal, I really want Alex Bregman to the Boston Red Sox. I'm a Boston sports fan, so this is going to be lean that way. But Alex Bregman with the silver medal up on the podium as well. With Walker Buehler coming in town, regardless of what you may think of him, the Red Sox are doing certain things that make them a much tougher out than they were last year. And I believe Alex Bregman with that bat and the green monster, I think it'd be foolish to take his stick anywhere else. He's got another Alex managing the club, a guy who worked with him in Houston. I just think it's such a no-brainer for Bregman. That's the silver medal. And the gold medal, right? We talk about the Boston Celtics. And with this particular core, right? Winning a second championship. So what I want under my tree is the Boston Celtics to win another one. And it doesn't necessarily have to be this year as back-to-back, but I need this core to win a second championship. The 2008 Boston Celtics, Paul Pierce, Kevin Garnett, they had a great chance, and Ray Allen, they had a great chance in 2010 in Game 7 to win a second championship, and they didn't. Instead, the Lakers went back-to-back in 09 and 10, and had the Celtics won that second championship, that team would be looked at differently. They had to make trades to bring that team together. It wasn't about like the Miami Heat where they're just sort of free agency. They had to move Al Jefferson, who was their biggest piece of the time. And I just say, so I really want for Christmas, I want this team to realize a second championship, because whether you talk about dynasty, I'm not trying to even go there, but a second championship just solidifies it in so many ways. We talk about, right, Pistons and Rockets over the years, right? They both got a couple of them, right?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
So
here's what I need under my tree this year. I have a Celtics take. However, I am hoping that in the first part of this Celtics sale, it goes to people who are already working with the Gross Spec group, meaning whether it's Bobby Epstein or Steve Paliuca, I want somebody to take over our Celtics, given where they are right now, who understands the financial commitment, but does have a little bit of kind of like emotional skin in the game, the way Rick Grossbeck did. Because, Jay, the numbers are through the roof, and we as Celtic fans may need to realize Jaylen Brown might get traded once this sale starts to happen, because a new owner might come in and say, I don't want to pay the freight. Number two, you and I share this. I know I brought you down a little bit, but again, that's why I want it for Christmas, because I don't want this team broken up, right?
I like it.
So number two, I'm with you, Travis Hunter. We agree. Bring me Travis Hunter to the Patriots. So even if they stink, they're exciting. Okay. And then number three, under the tree this year, Uncle Dana in Vegas. Are you listening? We need Johnny Bones and Tom Aspinall to finish this shit. I need to know who is the best between those two. And I'm sure Johnny Bones is going to want 20 million or whatever the number would be to be able to get him in the ring. And Dana White's got a hold on the line in terms of not letting the salaries get out of whack. But if all it takes is a check, Endeavor has a ton of money. UFC has a ton of money. Get that fight in the ring. You will do over 1 million pay-per-views with Johnny Bones and Tom Aspinall at the top of the card.
I absolutely love it. And if we're reaching out to Uncle Dana, Elf on the Shelf, right? Take us back to the Sphere, Dana White. Take us back to the Sphere.
Hey, I saw you tweeting that at Boston Anik, and you loved it so much. I saw you like begging him to go back.
Daniel Cormier
will never do it again.
Best night of my life. I know it was such an undertaking, but I know we got to get out of here. Cody's got some Christmas video that he's gonna mess with us with. So whenever you're ready.
Really?
Oh God. And I was just about to say, yeah, DC, that's so fun. I didn't even know you're showing us DC. And I said, get rid of this. Get rid of this. I'm going to tell you why I'm telling you to get rid of this, okay? Bilal, who was on that set, Cody, you'll appreciate this, right? DC's a fraud. And I don't care if you put, for all you tuning in to get, no, he's a fraud because he can sing. That's my point. He can sing. And
wait, he was tanking it?
There was a little bit of a tank, in my opinion. I didn't get a chance to talk to my brother about this, but
DC.
No, he can sing, but it was a little bit that it was a little high for the range. So instead of trying to crank it, he sort of made it a little bit of a gag, a little bit of a joke. Barstool Big Cat, Barstool Sports, right? He sang the national anthem, crushed it back in the day. So no, I think DC, had he really committed to it and wanted to champion that song, he could have done well. So Cody, I see what you did there, but no, I had a long conversation with Bilal about this, and I cornered Bilal. I'm like, you can sing. Can you sing? Can you carry a tune? He's like, yeah, I could carry a tune. Right, Gresh, can you carry a tune, or are you totally tone deaf?
No. It depends on sort of what tone. Like my grandfather was a great church singer. So if I go, did you ever hear Nikolai Volkov sing the Russian national anthem back in the 80s in WWF?
Yeah.
If I kind of do that and go like full throated, the whole "Oh Holy Night" and try to get
you
a
just
little
gave us
bigger,
our
I
answer.
can.
I think you just gave us our answer. I'm not sure that. So would your wife say you can carry a tune?
Oh no.
Well, see, that's the thing.
No one would,
my wife is completely
try.
tone deaf. My wife just can't. Like, if my wife were to sing "Happy Birthday" here right now, it would appear to be a joke because there are certain notes that are just missed. I'm not saying I'm any great singer, but you can either carry a tune or not. You can either hear the music or not. So my point, I said to Bilal Muhammad, you can sing, right? You can stay with the melody. He's like, yeah. So can DC. So when he went off tune, I thought he was full of shit.
So that really is the takeaway of all of this. It wasn't even the video at the end. What our real takeaway and our capture is Boston Anik calls out Daniel Cormier for being full of singing shit.
And if you think DC gives a shit about what I say, it's not, right? He's a little bit like an older brother. He might be a little younger than me, but he's like a little bit like a big brother. Like, I think I told you the story where he was with his family in the lobby recently, right? And I walk in at the end of the night and I'm like, oh, it's DC. And he was like genuinely mad, but I kind of loved that he was mad. And it's very, right? It's only like kind of like a brother where it's like John spent so much time around this guy that inevitably I'm around him a lot. So yeah, I like poking his buttons. And I will say the Saints have been so bad this year. He's a Saints fan. And I lost money to him on like week 2 or 3 on the Saints as they were rolling. And we were going to bet again. I was going to bet against him on the team the Saints played every week. I should have done it. Go ahead.
My only DC story is I did have him on the radio once. He was fantastic, really great, all that stuff. Your brother helped set that up. But also, when you guys were in Boston, the day that my wife dumped her wine all over your brother's suit, guess in that kerfluffle on the street, guess who got to slide behind everybody and go hop in a car and ride over to the garden? That would be DC. So my wife, in a way, kind of spilling the wine on John's jacket that day when he came out for the hug and we saw each other on the street. It actually saved DC from being completely mobbed.
So Mr. and Mrs. Gresh are also Team DC, right?
Oh, yeah.
We get John Anik to get DC on the show.
Yep,
we get DC off to the vehicle, spill wine on John Anik. Get us out of here, Gresh.
There we go. That's it. Merry Christmas, everyone. Happy Hanukkah to those who celebrate as well. Anik boys, have a great Christmas. Cody, have a great Christmas as well. I got the kids walking in and out of here. My parents are here. My mom made the brownies already, so I need to go have lunch. That's
the marijuana brownies?
Oh, no. These are the good. These are good home. These are good mom's good home baked brownies. Like, she puts mayo in them, dude.
Wow. All right. Sorry. We're not ending the show. Sorry. So my younger brother hates mayo more than anyone I've ever met in my life.
Really?
Right? Yes, but it's very, there are people that hate mayo.
Yeah, of course.
But as an ingredient in that, it sounds incredible. That's a whole nother conversation. I can't even imagine how that transforms the brownies. But I hate cream cheese, right? I'm one of the few Jews. If you hide cream cheese, my wife, I'm still angry with it. 15 years ago, my wife hid cream cheese. So do you disclose that to all the people that are eating them? They know mayo's in it?
No, because they eat one and they go, oh my God, I want another.
If my younger brother, I'm not joking, Gresh. I talked about you kicking his ass for one of his takes. He would fly home that day if you gave him a brownie with mayo and he didn't know about it.
Oh,
I know how those ingredients break down.
Until he had one. It's the secret sauce.
I bet.
Now listen, I'm a large-o. My brother, my little brother, right? He's 6'3", 285. So we have been eating these brownies for 40 years. My mom's been making them. It took my sister-in-law to be like, what's kind of the secret ingredient? My mother goes, yeah, it says certain things. I put mayo in there. And I'm like, God damn, it blew my mind that her brownie secret was putting mayo in those things. And believe it or not, we looked it up on the web. There are a lot of people who do it. So she had kind of a common sort of hack that she used forever, kept from us, so that we would keep saying, Mom, please God, make us these brownies.
Well, and Cody Merrow in the chat says he hates mayo more than my younger brother Dave. I'm sure he does. But isn't it just eggs, right? As it's broken down, so it's a right?
Yeah,
I mean,
there's the oil and eggs or whatever. But if you replace it with that, then you're kind of okay. Cody also says he hates eggs and sour cream and mustard. He hates air.
I tell you what, the cream cheese, sour cream, the white substances is fascinating. You know what? Next episode, we also got to do our quarterback head coach rankings. But episode, we got to do like a white substance, right? Blue cheese, ranch. There's certain people that hate all of it. Anyway, good conversation.
I hate ranch. I'm with you. It's gross. Blue cheese.
No, you're not with me. I'll fuck with some ranch. Get the blue cheese out of the fucking building. I almost got kicked out of Buffalo for not wanting blue cheese with my wings, though.
Wow, you know what? That would have been a badge of honor because Buffalo sucks. And on that note, Merry Christmas, everyone. We will see you here next week. How about this? New Year's Eve. We will be here getting ready to celebrate 2025 with you on gas. Hopefully my camera connects to my computer and I don't want to have a freak out to where my wife said, and quote, you sound like a lunatic. That's it. We're out of here. It's brownie time.